This is a courtesy announcement that the meeting is now live on YouTube and the meeting portal.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Housing, Land Use, Environment, and Transportation Committee meeting. We'll open up this meeting and call it to order by establishing quorum. Peggy.
Good afternoon, Vice Chairperson Semidian.
Here.
Chairperson Arenas.
I'm here too.
You have a quorum.
Wonderful. So we're going to move into item number 2, which is public comment. And this is where anyone can share comment about anything that's not on our agenda today. If you're in person, like to share, please fill out that yellow card. If you're online, please raise your virtual hand. Peggy, what do we have?
We have no speakers in chambers, and one moment for the Zoom room. We have no hands in the Zoom room.
Well, that is surprising because this is Hewlett. All right, so we're going to move on to item number 3, which is approving the consent calendar. And I'd like to place item number 6 on consent, if that's okay with my vice chair. Vice Chair Semidian, what do you say?
Oops, say, I'm pushing the wrong button. Can't believe that. I think that is fine, given the extensive conversation that we had at the full board meeting. If that were not the case, I might have a different point of view on that one, Madam Chair. So happy to put item 6 on consent as well.
Perfect, thank you. And then I'll check in with Peggy to see if we have any speakers.
We have no speakers on the item.
Well, surprising. Then let's move on to the vote.
Vice Chairperson Semidian.
Aye.
Chairperson Arenas.
Me too, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we are on our regular agenda items for discussion. I see you're already over there. This is to receive a report from our Parks and Recreation Department relating to countywide trails. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Joe Aguilera, Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation, sitting in for Director Don Rocha. Today I'm joined by Jeremy Farr, Work Out of Class Deputy Director, and Rebecca Coates-Maldoon, our Countywide Trails Program Manager, and they will be presenting and available to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members. I'm Rebecca Coates-Maldoon, the Countywide Trails Program Manager with the County Parks Department. Today, I am going to provide a presentation on the Countywide Trails Master Plan map update, including a summary of the proposed changes to the map and the public outreach process. I will start with a brief overview of the Countywide Trails Master Plan itself to orient you to the plan's goals and content before sharing more information on the map update, which has been underway since 2022. The Countywide Trails Master Plan was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in 1995. Certain portions of the Countywide Trails Master Plan, including the Countywide Trails Master Plan map, are incorporated into the County General Plan, also adopted in 1995. The Countywide Trails Master Plan envisions a comprehensive network of trails of countywide significance across Santa Clara County, both in incorporated and unincorporated areas. These trails include the Bay Area Ridge Trail, San Francisco Bay Trail, Coyote Creek Trail, Los Gatos Creek Trail, Stevens Creek Trail, and others that you're likely familiar with. These trails are intended to connect cities, regional parks and open spaces, and the northern and southern regions of the county. Although responsibility for the actual construction and long-term management of each individual trail varies by jurisdiction, the County Parks Department provides general oversight and coordination of the overall trails system. Some of the key concepts of the Countywide Trails Master Plan are that the plan does not cover all trails within Santa Clara County, such as all trails within a county park or a trail serving local neighborhoods within a city. It's focused on those broader trail connections of countywide significance. The trail routes in the Countywide Trails Master Plan are conceptual, setting general goals and intended uses for trails, but not specific on-the-ground alignments or designs, which would be determined later as part of more detailed trail development processes. The plan emphasizes use of public lands where feasible and lays out limitations on county use of eminent domain related to trails. Since trail routes are high-level and conceptual, routes can shift during later implementation on the ground. And the Countywide Trails Master Plan is not an acquisition plan related to specific properties. The plan is also a planning tool for future trail connections and is not meant to be used as a trail guide for a hike or ride on existing segments. The Countywide Trails Master Plan is the foundational guide for the county's work on trails, but does not preempt local trail plans. Instead, it provides a coordinated vision for linking the overall trail system and implementation efforts of different jurisdictions. The Countywide Trails Master Plan sets priorities for countywide trail projects in unincorporated areas, but does not set trail priorities for cities or other jurisdictions. As previously mentioned, portions of the master plan are also incorporated in the county general plan. Specifically, the preamble and policies are part of the Parks and Recreation chapter, and the map is a separate item shown with the general plan land use map and regional parks and scenic highways map. I will now shift to an overview of the current map update, including proposed changes to the map, information on public outreach, and map update next steps. County Parks is undertaking an update to the 1995 Countywide Trails Master Plan map, shown here, to be ultimately considered for adoption by the County Board of Supervisors. The map shows conceptual alignments for the proposed countywide trail routes, distinguishing route types and other considerations at a high level. Here is a preview of the draft updated Countywide Trails Master Plan map, which we will discuss in more detail. Updating the Countywide Trails Master Plan map will ultimately require consideration by the Board of Supervisors in two related capacities. As it relates to the Countywide Trails Master Plan, this effort is a focused update to the Countywide Trails Master Plan map and directly related language on conceptual trail routes and regional staging areas. The map update also includes trail reprioritization in the unincorporated county. The map update is intended to refresh, not overhaul, the master plan, and there are no changes to the core concepts, policies, and guidelines of the plan. As it relates to the county general plan, this effort replaces the 1995 Countywide Trails Master Plan map with the updated map, but does not change any general plan language, including the Countywide Trails Master Plan policies that are part of the Parks and Recreation chapter of the general plan. The proposed changes to the Countywide Trails Master Plan map from the 1995 map fall into four main categories. We will go through each of these in more detail. The first category of proposed changes is integration with active transportation planning. The 1995 master plan included off-street trails, on-street bikeways, and on-street bikeways with parallel trails. Since the master plan was developed, several comprehensive active transportation planning efforts have occurred or are in progress at the countywide scale, including VTA's Countywide Bicycle Plan, VTA's Bicycle Superhighway Implementation Plan, and the County Roads Department's Active Transportation Plan. The Countywide Trails Master Plan map update includes proposed changes to better integrate with countywide active transportation planning by shifting on-street bikeway determination to transportation agencies. This removes most on-street bikeways and on-street bikeways with parallel trails from the Countywide Trails Master Plan map. However, bicycle connectivity along most of these conceptual routes continues to be addressed by transportation agency plans. Some proposed overlap remains between plans, including for 3 critical on-street connections in South County that link parks and open spaces, and connections that close short gaps in off-street trails consistent with local planning. The second category of proposed changes involves a series of trail updates and realignments to better reflect current planning. Since the Countywide Trails Master Plan was developed in 1995, trails have been built on the ground, cities have updated their trail plans, park and open space trail plans have been created, new public lands have been acquired, and new partnership opportunities may exist related to trails. These are reflected in the map update while retaining the core vision of the Countywide Trails Master Plan. The third category of proposed changes is the proposed addition of trails. A total of 13 off-street trails are proposed for addition to the Countywide Trails Master Plan that meet criteria for countywide trails in the master plan. This includes 1 sub-regional trail, the Mount Elmonham to the Sea Trail, and 12 connector trails. Several trails are in the urban core and are part of city plans, while others are in the unincorporated county. The fourth and final category of proposed changes to the Countywide Trails Master Plan are modifications to the regional staging areas. The map update includes the addition of a series of light rail, train, and BART stations near existing or planned countywide trails as areas of evaluation for regional staging. The modifications also remove 3 areas of evaluation that have been added into parklands since 1995, but keep the existing areas of evaluation at Gavilan and Evergreen colleges. The map update includes reprioritization of undeveloped trail segments in the unincorporated county to guide the County of Santa Clara's work on trails. The Countywide Trails Master Plan does not define city priorities within the incorporated areas. These are determined by each individual jurisdiction. Current city priorities related to the Countywide Trails Network are noted in the map update document for reference, but are subject to change through city planning, budgeting, and other processes. Within the unincorporated county, trails have been reprioritized based on public input and the prioritization framework in the Countywide Trails Master Plan. The prioritization framework tends to favor more urban trails that have convenient access and serve many people, as well as trails on lands within public ownership. The Countywide Trails Master Plan also acknowledges that trail development is often opportunity-based, and implementation of any trail in the Countywide Trails network represents positive progress. So other trail segments may become higher priorities for county work and coordination as opportunities arise. Through this trail reprioritization, 5 trail segments are identified in the map update as being high priority, which are shown here and described further in the map update document in your packet. The map update has been underway since 2022, and County Parks has conducted extensive public outreach. I wanted to share a bit about that outreach process. In 2022 and 2023, County Parks began substantial engagement with all other jurisdictions in Santa Clara County that are involved in implementation of the Countywide Trails Master Plan, holding direct meetings with cities, state and federal parks agencies, regional open space agencies and other special districts, transportation agencies, other county departments, and neighboring counties. County Parks also met with tribal representatives, non-governmental organizations, and other major stakeholders. County Parks conducted a series of 11 informational presentations to city bicycle and pedestrian advisory committees and other advisory commissions or boards. These were conducted in virtual and in-person formats spanning a wide geographic area and were a great opportunity to collaborate with city staff and hear directly from city residents about the map update. County Parks also held meetings to receive in-depth public and stakeholder feedback on the draft map update at multiple points in the process. This included in-person and virtual public meetings, as well as presentations to the County Parks and Recreation Commission. County Parks also developed a GIS-based online feedback tool to seek public input. This included an interactive draft map, a public input survey with high-level questions, and the ability to leave location-specific feedback on the map, answers to frequently asked questions, and additional information about the map update. County Parks advertised the online feedback tool and public meetings and presentations through electronic mailings, the department's e-newsletter, social media, newspaper ads, and the department's website. In addition to feedback through the GIS tool and at public meetings, we also received feedback through direct emails and other contact from members of the public. County Parks carefully considered the feedback received and made a series of route and data adjustments on the map in response to this feedback, working closely with the relevant local jurisdictions. This is reflected in the map update before you today. Now we will talk about the map update process and next steps. The map update was reviewed by the Parks and Recreation Commission in August, who approved forwarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors via Hewlett. The map update was reviewed by the Planning Commission in September, who approved forwarding a favorable recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to adopt the proposed amendment to the map in the general plan. Today, the map update is here as a report to Hewlett. The map update is anticipated to go to the full Board of Supervisors later this fall for review and adoption of the map update. This concludes our staff presentation, and I am happy to answer questions or receive feedback on the map update.
Chairperson Arenas,
Yes.
I wanted to just briefly offer the why we do this. So let me take us all back to 2020 when we were, and it was a shock to the world really, when we had to shelter in place. One of the very few, if not only, opportunity to get out was our county parks, and leadership by supervisors submitting as an example to ask us to waive our fees. What is the result of that is that there were members of the community who have never been to one of our regional parks, and they got to experience it. Yeah. And I'm really pleased to say that our participation levels have stayed high above pre-pandemic levels. And why this is important is that when we come back to the community to ask for support for the park charter, we have to be able to explain the value of this system to them. There are natural resource conservation value, but certainly the way people experience our county parks is through hiking the trails. And so by building out this trail system, we're giving people more opportunities to enjoy it. But importantly as well, you know, I've put personally a very high emphasis, and 2 directors now, on the urban trail network, because there are people that can't go out to our regional parks. And so the way they can experience what we can provide is through these urban trail connections. It also provides alternative commute. I certainly can attest to, at least in the city of Cupertino, that they were finally able, and these take decades sometimes to get the right of way and to engineer and to plan, and then people that are adjacent, I experienced this in Cupertino, are opposed. Matadero Creek Trail, as an example, ended up not coming to fruition because neighbors were concerned about crime and other kinds of impacts. But I'll tell you that finally when we got the Cupertino Trail done along Valley Water, Calabasas Creek, I saw a very significant reduction in parents driving their kids to school, because I live right next to the local high school, and I get sort of backed into my court. And I could see that, and now it's not only for kids getting to school, but also I see families enjoying the trail, and in a way that's safe, because I don't feel personally as a parent with a child that it's safe necessarily to bicycle out in the streets. And so it accomplishes all these wonderful purposes, including reducing greenhouse gas emissions, getting kids to physically exercise and get out there and enjoy activities with their families. All of those things are supported by this plan. And so I wanted to really emphasize for our elected officials the why we do this. And it's certainly consistent with our larger county mission. So I wanted to just provide that context as you consider this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, but I will ask my colleague for comments. Actually, I'll check in with Peggy first and see if we have any callers or speakers.
We have no speakers in chambers and no raised hands in the Zoom room.
Okay, I'm going to go to my vice chair in case you have comments first.
I am happy to move the recommended action, which is to receive the report from Parks and Rec Department relating to Countywide Trails Master Plan map update. And I think the only thing I would say is, I know from my history on the board how much work this is. It's not exactly the kind of thing people come up and slap you on the back and say, way to go. So let me say, way to go, and give a virtual slap on the back. It's a lot of darn work, and it pays off in ways that Ms. Gallegos has just spoken to quite well, I think. But, you know, I'm not sure people always see the connection between the work of the organization and the benefit out in the community. So thank you for that, and I'm happy to move the recommended action, which is simply to receive the report.
And I will second that. So I have a couple of questions. I also believe in investing in our trails, and actually my office advocated, and we ensured some funding for our Thompson Creek Trail that happened rather quickly compared to what it typically takes to work on trails. And so it launched off, I think it was last year. And it is one of the, and it's really important in my district because it creates that connectivity, but it also just creates overall connectivity. And I understand what this is and what this isn't in terms of, you know, it's not to focus on city-specific trails or community trails, but I've got to say that, you know, we've just recently purchased the Richmond Ranch, and I'm just wondering if there's a particular reason why the Thompson Creek Trail is not outlined to its full length on the maps. It was in the 1995 plan, and it isn't in this recent plan. It's also, of course, like I said, it's in the City of San Jose's Thompson Creek Trail Master Plan, and so I just wanted to hear back from you.
So we did work very closely with the city of San Jose on this map update to ensure that what we are reflecting on the map is consistent with what they are showing in their local plans and that they are planning to implement. So this alignment that is shown here is reflective of those conversations with the city.
Okay, I would ask you, and I'm going to put that in the motion for you to go back and check that out, because I know specifically that this is not the full length of the Thompson Creek Trail. I personally know that because this is a creek trail that we worked on as a council office. All right, so the other piece I'm going to ask about is the outreach. I know it was 30 plus, I think, meetings. What's the number of total stakeholders, partners, or community members that participated in that? In its totality.
So we held a series of public meetings at the county scale and did get members of the public coming to those meetings. We had over 200 respondents to the online survey, that interactive map that we put together. We did go to 11 different city meetings, bicycle pedestrian advisory committees, and other advisory boards. So there were a number of members of the public that attended those meetings. We worked closely with the city staff to advertise those meetings and to receive feedback directly from those members of the public as well.
And so you never captured the total amount of folks who, in terms of numbers, was it 300 people in totality that provided input and feedback?
We do have those numbers for the survey itself, which is where we were directing people to provide a lot of that specific feedback. So those numbers were about 220. But in terms of the specific numbers of the members of the public who attended the public meetings, I would say it varied by public meeting, and I don't have that number in front of me.
Okay, thank you. So, Vice Chair, I asked if there was a particular reason why the Thompson Creek Trail wasn't outlined to its full length. And I think this is particularly important because of our recent purchase of the Richmond Ranch, and this particular trail would connect us all the way, or connect my community all the way to the Richmond Ranch property at some point in the future. And so I want it reflected in this master plan. Now, I think what the response was that they connected with the city staff and they received what was given to them. I know in particular that this is not the full totality of the trail. It's actually, in 1995, it reflects the whole full Thompson Creek Trail, and now it doesn't. And so I just want it to be accurate, and I want that to be part of the motion so that before it moves into the board, because I will bring it up again, either we fix it now or we fix it when it comes to the board. I'd rather do it now.
Supervisor Arenas, we will have staff go back and revisit the discussion with the City of San Jose staff. If we get the same response, we'll advise you, and so we can re-engage if, in fact, from a staff perspective, they're reducing the scope of the trail. We're happy to engage you if you want to engage, your counterparts at the city and reprioritize the full length of the trail.
Reprioritize.
I believe from what staff is telling us that this map reflects, I'm going to be corrected if I didn't understand this correctly, that it reflects what the city has communicated as their proposed trail, and that if in fact there was a longer trail, they may have reduced that trail for budgetary or other reasons or other kinds of constraints.
It's still in the City of San Jose's master plan for the trail.
No, I'm going to ask the deputy director.
Yeah,
Mr. Farr.
we can, Jeremy Farr, acting deputy director. So we'll check with staff. I think part of this is that it's, this countywide trails map does not include every single trail for every single city. So there could be a portion of that trail that maybe is considered not part of the regional connection, but part of the interior network of trails. So we can look and make sure that this is accurately depicted here, and we can give you, we can provide more feedback on what that is, or we can work with the city to see if they can also reprioritize that. The only
That
thing,
is one question, whether that's reflective of in the city of San Jose's, and I'm telling you it is, for their master plan, but you can go ahead and check that out. But we as a county have purchased the Richmond Ranch property, and it would behoove us to create connectivity, irregardless of whether the city of San Jose has that in their master plan or not, which it does. So it's not a question of whether the city of San Jose has it, it's a question of what we value in terms of connection. And I hear that we value connection. Why wouldn't we want this full connectivity within my district to be created after such an expensive purchase?
Understood, valid point, we'll take it back. We understand the significance of it, and let me just go back with staff and understand the circumstances a little better, and we will report back, certainly before we go to the board, and re-engage you as necessary. We share the significance and importance of all these trail connections, so I think we just need to understand why it's reflected in this way, and we'll circle back to you.
Sure.
But we understand the value.
The other question is, why would we, not the city, but the county, why would we change this map if we had the trail reflected in 1995 in full completion, and now we don't? So that's a value that we are reflecting within our own maps and not dependent on an outside entity. Okay, so I am going to support the motion only if we have that question answered before the next board meeting.
Let me try it this way, Madam Chair, and see if this works, and also if it gives the clerk what they need to make sure that the record is clear on the request that you're putting forward. Move the recommended action, which is to receive the report and direct staff to address to the greatest degree possible the issue of connectivity, and I want to be clear that that's a substantive issue, not just a display issue, and to communicate to the full board before the item comes to the board next for review by our full board, what the status is. Does that get us there?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Wonderful. I'm going to second that. And before we move to into voting for this, I also have a question about the Almeda and Quicksilver, Calero, and Santa Teresa Park. And if I'm wondering, why are we not proposing connecting the trails there?
Could you clarify the location that you're discussing?
Right. You know what? I'll take some of these questions offline. I think they fall under the direction that my vice chair just provided. In order for us to just move along, I'll go ahead and do that. All right. Peggy, we can go ahead and vote.
Can I clarify, is the motion then for staff to address to the greatest degree possible the issue of connectivity to the three trails you mentioned, or just the one trail, the Thompson, Almeda and Quicksilver, and Santa Teresa?
Sure. I think how Vice Chair you said, I think it just Creek Trail connectivity is what he said, and I asked specifically about those particular trails. So if we can keep it general, and then I'll just go ahead and ask offline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we're happy to report back. And what I think we'll do, so we're coming back in the fall, and I don't recall the date again we're targeting for the board.
December 3rd.
So we have that one meeting on November 5th, and then the next meeting's December 3rd. What I would suggest is we'll prepare an off agenda to the entire board, and happy to arrange a meeting where we could brief you on the off agenda.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Sounds great. Wonderful. Okay, Peggy, I think we're ready.
Vice Chairperson Semidion.
Aye.
Chairperson Arenas.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And Madam Chair, forgive me, I should have mentioned earlier before we let the Parks folks go, item number 11, which we left on consent, does deal with the issue of fees for our various camping and picnic reservations. And I will ask my office to follow up offline and have some conversation with Parks. I just wanted to give you that heads up. Okay? Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to move on to item number 5, which is our proposed 2025 legislative policies, the Hewlett chapter. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Arenas and Vice Chair Semidion, Deputy County Executive David Campos, and I am joined by staff from IGR and from the County Counsel's Office, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, Monica Tong, she, her pronouns with Intergovernmental Relations.
Good afternoon, Elaine Trin with IGR.
Good afternoon, Mary Hannah Weir, Lead Deputy County Counsel with the Office of the County Counsel.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Vice Chair. We are here to present the 2025 annual legislative policies for the County of Santa Clara. And as you know, as you heard, the staff that have been working on this, and just as a reminder, if we can move to the next slide, we as IGR are responsible for overseeing and managing the legislative platform and agenda for the County of Santa Clara. And when we talk about legislative platform, there are really 5 things that we're talking about. One of them is this document, which is the policies document. The second piece are the priorities, which are basically policy issues that we identify as priorities in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. The third piece are the bills or initiatives that are actually sponsored by the Board of Supervisors. And then the fourth piece are the funding requests that we make to the state and to the federal government. If we can go to the next piece, next slide. The legislative policies document essentially is a document that serves as the roadmap for what areas we as IGR have the authority to weigh in on behalf of the County of Santa Clara. As you can imagine, as you know, there are thousands of bills that go through the state and federal legislatures, and this document provides guidance on where we can weigh in, support a bill, send a letter, and do the kinds of things that come with support or opposition. What we have done, if you can go to the next slide, is, as you may recall, back at the beginning of this calendar year, we came to the board requesting approval of a revised legislative policies document. And at that point, we were directed by the Board of Supervisors, and in fact, it was Chair Arenas who pointed out something that we ourselves had recognized, which is that there was a need to do a comprehensive review of the entire document. And this is a document at the time of 84 pages that essentially had been created through mainly additions, subtractions, but mainly additions. As issues came up, language was added, to address emerging issues, but there had never been a comprehensive review of the entire document. And at that point, the Board of Supervisors directed IGR to begin that process. And this timeline sort of shows you the work that has been done over the last few months. And it actually began in earnest in May of this year. And at that time, County Council, through their legislative team, began the review of the document. And the document is essentially divided into 5 chapters, each chapter corresponding to each of the policy committees of the Board of Supervisors. And that review began by County Council, and then we began to notify the leadership of all these departments that, in fact, we were beginning that process of reviewing the document, and that would happen in July. In August, we began to meet with departments following the review by County Council, and specifically asked them to review not only the sections that were pertinent to the subject matter of their operations, but we also asked them to take a broader look and to see if there were areas in their work that touched upon some of the other chapters that perhaps before they had not engaged in or they had not reviewed. We had dozens of meetings, close to 30 meetings with agencies throughout the county. As you can see, the document basically went through very extensive changes, and there are 3 versions of the document that were presented to each of you, to each office. One is the final document without any red lines. A second version is a red line version that tracked all of the changes in each of the chapters. And then another version that actually highlighted the main additions to each chapter in the document. I want to just note that the timeline that you see here is a little different from the one in your packet, because this timeline reflects the feedback that we got from the board and committee. We are actually aiming, and I think, is that the right up there? Okay, so I don't think it's reflected in that, but it's we're coming back to the board in January of 2025 for a final vote on the policies document. And what we're doing in the meantime is going through every committee with the relevant section for those committees. And what we're asking for in this section is to, get your feedback and comments on the Hewlett portion of the document. And if we can go to the next slide, just to give you a highlight of some of the changes that are included in the document. First of all, we included sort of a statement about the mission of the county, the core values of the county as a framework for the entire document. The edits in each of the 5 chapters reflect changing priorities or perhaps a changing dynamic of the legislature and of Congress. And we also have a new statements in many of those chapters that address emerging issues that were not issues, in years prior. And there are different kinds of edits. But in terms of the Hewlett chapter, I want to just highlight a couple of the main changes, just for your information and for those members of the public that are watching this. Statements were restructured to fit more topically instead of actually doing it by department. For example, policy statements and general topics such as, environmental protection, fire protection were moved from department-specific headings to actually topic headings. The housing section consolidated a lot of repetitive statements to clarify the county stance with respect to affordable housing. And notably, the food system section was expanded to reemphasize the county's stance on access to nutrition sustainability. I will note that in the audience, we have all of the departments that contributed to this section of the legislative policies document of this chapter in the event that you have specific questions about this chapter. So with that, that will end my presentation. And again, really grateful to all of the department heads behind us who, and the dozens of agencies that have engaged in this process in the last few months. And also thank you to County Council and the IGR staff that have done a lot of work to get us to this point. So respectfully, happy to take your questions.
Thank you so much. Before we move to my vice chair, I'm going to ask Peggy if we have any speakers.
We have no speakers on the item.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to move to vice chair in case, yes, there's comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a chance to look at the document. I appreciate the red line, and there were 2 or 3 areas that I had questions about, and I was able to sort those out. So I think what I'd like to do is simply move that we receive the report, which is not an endorsement or opposed.
So, first of all, I just want to thank you for your work, doing this deeper dive, having it be more holistic, and allowing us to see those different versions, right, so we can appreciate the progress. Of course, just on the heels of a lot of victories, I want to thank you once again and publicly on your work on AB 3035. Getting that across the finish line was very, really important, and I know that it was a collective effort. Obviously, your leadership in Sacramento, but I know that Silva Gallegos and her team, and of course, Jacqueline Anciano's team contributed to a lot of the evolution of that legislation. As you all know, that is something that is really important to me, and this is farm worker housing, what I'm talking about. And so I'm really grateful for that. I'm excited for the next version of actually implementation to see how the rubber hits the road here locally. And so because of all that, it's really exciting. And I met one of the county supervisors for Monterey, and I asked her, hey, how come you didn't join on the AB 3035? I didn't miss that opportunity to do that. And we had been connecting through the conference, and so she just mentioned that they were doing just lots of really good work, and their board managed to approve the housing that they foresaw was needed, and so I think they managed to do that way, and I don't know if at one point or another maybe they'll see the value in densifying, but I think that they're already really on that track in terms of density and seeing the value in that. So, I think that there's also a lot of work that's getting done under the housing around gender-based violence and having special attention and support for those within that population and under public transit rider protection. And so I know that there's just a lot of really good work, including advocacy on improving public transit options for South County. So all of that, for all of those things, I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing. So now I'm going to move into this version. I really appreciate it. I like the different headers on this, and so I'm going to give you some feedback based on some of the different headers. So I'm going to start with the housing. I see how you've clarified language, you added some statements on collaboration and alignment. You expanded on the statement on the agricultural worker housing. And in one of those items, this is item number 16, it currently reads as recognition that higher density affordable housing should be relocated with urban areas outside of very high fire hazard severity areas and with access to public water and sewer to maximize accessibility to services, transit, and jobs for affordable housing residents. And I like Something to include along the lines of recognition that higher density, just at the very end of that, well, I'll read it again. Recognition that higher density affordable housing should be located within urban areas outside of very high fire hazard severity areas and with access to public water and sewer to maximize accessibility to services, transit, and jobs for affordable housing residents. Special consideration, this is what I should be added, is special consideration should be given to the unique needs of agriculture worker housing, which may require proximity to agricultural areas while still ensuring access to essential services, adequate infrastructure, and safe living conditions. And I'd like to ask my vice chair to include that as part of the motion for item 16, and that is under the guise of housing.
And I believe that's page 259 of the packet.
Ooh, you're good.
Madam Chair,
Sorry.
the motion is to send all of this without recommendation to the full board. So I would be happy to incorporate that language, again, without recommendation. I'm quite deliberately trying to avoid providing recommendations to the board since there will be a new board constituted in January. So I'm happy to forward the language for consideration by the board and include your language in the motion.
Sure, I'll accept that, and if need be, I'll do a referral or a memo. But I appreciate that consideration now to include it as consideration. Okay, so that is for item number 16 under housing, and then under transportation. I'm not going to review all of I have some highlights that I appreciated, but I'm just going to say thank you, just for the sake of keeping this agenda moving. Under transportation, I really appreciated, like I said, options for improving public transit in South County. And in item number 10, I'd like for us to have something that could read as federal and state funding to provide appropriate shade for public transit stops to help protect against extreme heat. And for that to be federal and state funding to provide appropriate shade for public transit stops to help protect underserved communities, including agriculture workers, against extreme heat. And that would be another consideration for a friendly amendment or inclusion in your motion, Vice Chair, that I understand would be a consideration.
For the record, happy to include it so that the clerk has that information and that it goes to the full board, Madam Chair.
Perfect.
And we're happy to make sure that we get the language correctly, Chair Arena. So following this meeting, assuming it's voted upon, we will make sure that we verify the language that you highlighted.
No, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Like I said, there's a couple of areas where I just really appreciate some highlights. But we can, as we follow up with you to have that accurate language, I can share with you some of those highlights that I appreciated. Thank you for doing this. I know that this is very strategic on your part, as well as for our board, so that we can continue to have legislation match our priorities and the needs of the community, as local as it can be here. So I appreciate that. All right, with that, and if there's no other comments, maybe from up here on the dais, no? All right, we'll take that vote now.
Vice Chairperson Semidian.
Aye.
Chairperson Arenas.
Yes,
Motion carries.
wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I know the work isn't done yet, but we really appreciate it. All right, so I think item number 6, we placed it on consent. So that leaves us with item number 7, which is agricultural worker housing verbal report.
Good afternoon, Sylvia Gallegos, Deputy County Executive. I'm pleased to report on two items. You may recall when we brought forward recommendations that one set related to what we've described as the permit transformation process, so both the entitlement process and also for building permits. And I'm pleased to report that after conducting an RFP and interviewing consultants, we selected Barry Dunn to support us in this effort. And we've convened a, what I'll describe as the executive sponsorship team. And we have set a schedule of biweekly meetings. We're currently in what I'll describe as a discovery phase. So the consultant Barry Dunn is reviewing existing policies, procedures to the extent we have them, and other related documents. And they'll visit our area December 2nd through the 5th. And we are going to line up stakeholders, including board members who are interested, to share their perspective as part of that information gathering. And we hope in the late December of 2024, or more practically January to February of 2025, to have the information back from the consultant. And we'll be then entering, the next phase, which is intensive interviews with stakeholders, both permitting department staff, developers, development consultants, and others, to be able to refine and understand the opportunities to make our processes more understandable, but also to make them more efficient. I think I told both of you in other settings where we had a builder's remedy applicant come in, and typically what would happen is they'd submit the application, we'd analyze it and possibly deem it incomplete, and then you'll have what is a period of time where you have this back and forth communication. And I'll say under Director Anciano, what we say is we're trying to develop people-centered services, and we're trying to get people away from their laptops and instead convene a meeting. And so in this one example of this builder's remedy project, we convened all the permitting staff, and within an hour and a half, we were able to work through with their, I think, 5 consultants and possibly 3 or 4 attorneys what was remaining. And that would be just a simple, concrete example where we hope we can reduce the time to process applications. And as I've said before, all the departments I've spoken to, the fire chief, the director for environmental health, certainly Mr. Freitas and roads, and we're all committed to providing much more robust GIS layers that show you parcel-specific information, so that before you embark on development, you have much richer information about the constraints of your parcel. As I've told you all before, developing in the rural areas is vastly more complex than in the urban cities because we don't have ready access to water, storm wastewater systems, and other systems. And so you have to consider things like, do you have a 30% slope? What's roads department planned width for roads, and does that impact your parcel and the developability of it? Do you have a riparian corridor where you have to have setbacks that limit your ability to have a septic system? All those are parcel-specific considerations and impact then what you can or cannot develop on your parcel. In addition, as we've said, we're trying to bring better language competency. So our idea is, at least with the threshold languages, be able to have fewer words, more diagrams and things that are more understandable and in different languages. And that's really married with this other project I have, which we'll see at Finance Committee in November, which is that we're trying to improve language access on our website. And we are embarking through the web portal project on a translation management system, so that our data on the public portal, including the planning departments, roads, environmental health, are in other languages that may be native to some of the people that are doing business with us. So it's a big undertaking, And I'm pleased to report that we have the consultant working underway. We will be doing more interviews in the fall, and hope to have a report to the board, I hope by May, June of next calendar year. And as I said, the departments, so for example, one of the chief isn't here, but one of the conversations I'm going to have with her is we're going to have this consultant not only make recommendations, but actually propose the changes to the ordinances, develop procedures where we lack them. Similarly, other departments struggle to be able to have staff do the business of their department, but also do the lift around writing new policies, updating procedures. And so one of the asks, and I regret I haven't talked to the chief yet, but one of the asks of the chief is that if they can hire a consultant to sort of supplement, because what we've heard consistently is that for the fire marshal, some of it is not having the information readily available. And so we're seeking this support from all the departments so that we can have, as I said, more information up front. So that's the permit process transformation process. I also want to report, you'll recall under your leadership, Supervisor Reynes, that in the budget we do have what we call the Ag Housing Ally, and it's a senior planner position. We are, it got approved. The list for the senior planner recruitment list was abolished because we have to work within our existing processes. And in November, we hope to have this job requirements completed and the documentation for a specialized senior planner recruitment set forth. So in other words, we're not going to treat it as a conventional planner. I mean, we're really going to be thinking very carefully about how to do a targeted recruitment for this position because it has a unique set of skills. Not only do you have to be a working planner, but you also have this other component of the job is to be a liaison, and I call it concierge service, so be a point of contact to help navigate bureaucracies, honestly. And it's a really difficult job because on the one hand, you're a planner, but you also are being an advocate for a certain set of developers. And having both skill sets and managing that requires a very special person. So we hope to have the recruitment posted in December, begin interviews in February of 2025, and we hope in the April-May timeline be able to fill the position.
Well, that is a very comprehensive report. Thank you so much. And I also want to give you an update about the work in LAFCO. As you know, we are doing a lot of our, we're revising policies and actually documenting policies based on previous decisions or state guidance or local guidance here. And I know that we wanted to make sure that whatever LAFCO decides in terms of their written policies, that they're congruent and on par with what internally we're working on. And so I did have our LAFCO commission approve for us to work, to have our county council work with their county council, just to make sure that nothing gets, overlooked as two different bodies work together that should be working really together anyways, but just wanted to make it very clear. All right, well, thank you so much for the update. There's so much there to unpack. I really appreciate that you shepherding this forward. I know there's a lot of, I know you said that the actual planner that you're looking for is kind of concierge and navigating bureaucracy, but dare I say that you're also navigating bureaucracy. We had a lot of bumps in the road with our legislation, as probably is typical for legislation. There's some things I think that are probably easier than others, but I really appreciate your work behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. It's certainly securing the $1.6 million from Office of Congresswoman Lofgren. I think that was really amazing, and just with the forethought of ensuring that we have different opportunities for folks here locally, our farmers. And with that, I wanted to ask, and I don't think I heard the update within that $1 million funding. I know that there was a potential for maybe some grants or some special support for farmers, for local farmers. Is there anything with that, any update within that effort?
I don't have one now. I can say, though, that the planning director did hire, finally, this is our fourth recruitment, a code enforcement manager, Mr. Revere, and he'll be spearheading the work around that grant. But I can report back next month. We do have teams that seek out other grant opportunities, and it's, we're relying upon what's available. But I'm happy to report on that next month.
Perfect. And I know that for our inventory grants, we funded a group of female farmers out in South County that was, I thought, very unique. You don't get to see a lot of farmers that are female and then are of different ethnicities. And so this was kind of a coalition that was really nice to see. I'd love to see how they could continue to be supported in one way or another. Obviously, we have limits in terms of our funding, just like anybody else, but I think they're a special group out there. Vice Chair, I see that you may have something? No. All right. Perfect. So this is time for Peggy to call on us.
First, to note that we have no speakers on the item, and then second, Vice Chairperson Semidian.
I am happy to move the recommended action, which is simply to receive the verbal report.
And Chairperson Arenas.
And I'll second that.
Motion carries.
We don't need to vote on it because it's a verbal report, or?
I think there might be conflicting views. I don't know that you ever need to have a motion to receive a report, but I know there is a practice by some supervisors to always move approval of the recommended action, which is to receive the report, and I can document anything you like.
I'm happy to jump in. Elizabeth Pianka, Assistant County Counsel. So there is no requirement to receive a report. It varies from committee to committee, and I think Peggy was just waiting for the roll call vote from the motion.
Okay. Well, we won't do that for the upcoming verbal reports, but we'll move on this one.
Okay. Vice Chairperson Semidian.
Aye.
Chairperson Arenas.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Awesome. Okay, so we're moving along. This is item number 8. This is our supportive housing system in Santa Clara County and rapid rehousing report. And we'll pass it over to KJ, Ms. Kaminsky for from our Office of Supportive Housing.
Thank you, Chairperson Arenas. KJ Kaminsky, Acting Director for the Office of Supportive Housing. I'm joined here today by Hillary Armstrong, Deputy Director, Laura Ortega Fuentes, our Continuum of Care Lead, and Leila Qureshi, one of our COC Program Managers, and they are going to share our Supportive Housing Dashboard Report as well as some highlights for rapid rehousing programs.
Thank you so much, KJ. We can start with our progress on community plan housing, community plan goals to end homelessness. Oh, there we go. For our goal to house 20,000 people by 2025, we are 82% of our goal. When you're looking at the numbers from January 2020 to August of 2024. For another one of our crucial goals is to reduce the inflow of people becoming homeless in Santa Clara County. And this is measured by the number of households completing the housing assessment for the first time since becoming homeless. Our baseline, we are lower than our baseline for sure. As you can see, the dark blue line, that is where we want to be at that 30% reduction. So we are continuing to work on getting this to be a greater and greater reduction in inflow as we work with our partners and look at these numbers more closely. This chart shows our housing placements compared to our inflow. Housing placements in green, and then the inflow is divided up by how people score on our VI SPDAT, is our common assessment tool that we use. As you can see, we are still working on our goal to narrow the gap between the inflow and housing placements. I will highlight that when in 2019, for every one person, one household housed, 2.5 became homeless, and now that that number is 1.7. So we are narrowing the gap, and we're continuing to work on that with our community. Shifting over to rapid rehousing, these are programs that provide a short-term rental subsidy. Usually the programs are a maximum of 2 years, and that rental subsidy is paired with supportive services. For rapid rehousing capacity shown here, our top 3 capacity-wise in terms of target populations are families with children at 32%, veterans at 21%, and single adults at 15%. And one thing I will note about the way we're displaying data is 79% of our rapid housing programs are targeting very specific populations, and so all of our data that we're showing is parsed out by subpopulations. Thank you. This shows on the left households that have been housed. So 1,371 households have been housed in the reporting period, and 40% were those families with children. And the next chart on the right shows average number of days in housing search in blue. So how long were these subpopulations looking for housing once they were enrolled in the program? And then the red is showing average number of days housed. So how long did they receive that rental subsidy and supported services before they achieved self-sufficiency and exited the program? Across all of our populations, we are averaging about a little over a year for the rental subsidy. You can see that veterans are, on average, staying in the program a lot less, and this is because over 60% of our veterans do exit to a permanent supportive housing for veterans, so VASH, because they, most of them report a high number of them report disabilities, so it makes sense for them to receive those long-term supports to make sure they're continue to be housed. In terms of our exit destinations, this is an outcome that we monitor closely. Our benchmark for our community is that 75% exit to a permanent destination, and for all of our programs, we're either really close or we are exceeding this benchmark. This chart shows total household income. A couple of things I'd like to point out is for youth and reentry, those are the 2 biggest groups that have 0 income. And I believe, let me look at my notes. When we look at our, just in further analysis, we see that 39% of our households are earning earned income. Other sources of income are disability benefits, Social Security, TANF, things like that. Go to the next slide. In terms of household demographics, a reminder for race and ethnicity, multiple responses are allowed when people are disclosing their race and ethnicity. So almost half of our participants are Hispanic or Latina origin. In terms of age tier, about 55% are in that 25 to 44 age range. One of the other things we'd like to highlight just overall through our data and hearing from our service providers is that although rapid rehousing is provided for usually a maximum of 2 years, there is a need with all of the economic challenges in this area there is a need for our participants to receive rental subsidy beyond those 2 years. And thank you. We are open to questions now.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm going to turn to Peggy to see if we have anybody on the line.
We have no speakers on the item.
Alrighty, I'm going to look to my vice chair to see if there's any comments, or should I start? Please. Okay, I'll go ahead and begin. Thank you so much for the report. I know that I mentioned this, I think, last night, in terms of the overrepresentation of Latinos in many different systems, including this system. We've already recognized this previously during this committee. And because of that reason, and this was last year, the last time that you came to us to present, I asked if you would incorporate some of the health data that you collect with the Latino health assessment efforts. How did that work out? How did that go?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Chairperson Arenas. I apologize. We're going to have to look into that and get back to you. So the request was to incorporate this data with the health assessment data?
Yeah, that was last year that I asked for that, that provided that direction. So that makes me nervous. I think at the very least, it could be part of the utilization part of the health assessment. And if you can give me an update, so I'll make that motion to approve this report and to provide me with an update on the incorporation of the health data into the Latino health assessment utilization efforts.
I'll second the motion.
Perfect. You know, the other question that I had was about, I think it was the single adult head of households reported chronic health conditions, and I'm wondering, what is that rate of connection to services for those folks? Do you keep that information?
Thank you for the question, Chairperson. We do track that information for our permanent supportive housing programs. We can look at whether we are able to track that for rapid rehousing programs. All of the rapid rehousing programs that we have do provide intensive case management at the same level that our permanent supportive housing programs. So they are connecting them with mental health, substance use treatment, medical care as needed by the individual or the family. And we can look at whether that's possible using our existing data. We know that it is for our folks that are enrolled in permanent supportive housing, so it may be possible for these individuals as well.
Thank you. You know, the other element that I just appreciate under the RH programs is the greater capacity to serve families and children, right? And I know there's a need to build more sites, obviously, but what are the long-term plans for that build out for RRH?
I can take this one. Thank you, Supervisor Arenas, for the question. And we are coming to the full board soon with our Heading Home third annual update that will include a full update on the pipeline of supportive housing and affordable housing for families that includes rapid rehousing units. I don't have the number right off the tip of my tongue, but I could probably pull it up in just a moment. But we certainly do still have a pipeline of those units that are going to come online over the next 3 to 4 years.
Oh, great, great. So I'm going to add on to my motion for that follow-up information on the data on the rate of connection to services know that you said you do this more for the permanent housing, and I know you're going to follow up, Ms. Kaminsky, and I'll ask if we can do this off in an off agenda report, please. And thank you so much for the response on the plans. So that is the addition to my motion. Thank you. And Vice Chair.
Only to say the second stands, Madam Chair, for the record. And I don't have questions. Thank you. The report, I thought, was clear and well written. The sort of the comments or questions that I might offer are a little more existential than a committee hearing, I think, about the fact that even as we stay on pace, the demand continues to outstrip what we're able to do. The fact that there are other partners who need to be as fully engaged, if not more, and the fact that the causes of homelessness are many, and therefore the responses need to be multifaceted, and that rapid rehousing depends on a place to rehouse people. And could spend an hour on that, but we won't, Madam Chair. So I just, no questions, and happy to second your motion.
Thank you, and thank you for putting this on the screen. This is just really amazing that we have in the pipeline 1,949 total units, specifically for families, which we're losing so many of them to Central Valley and to other places, and these are families that probably have been in our area for generations, or even if it hasn't been for generations, just the diversity of our community starts to tarnish when people are displaced this way. So I really appreciate your continued commitment to holding the fabric of families here. I know for the city of San Francisco, they have a whole effort on how to engage and continue to support families, because they really don't have families in San Francisco living, and so they have a family-friendly initiative out there. And I would hate for San Jose to have to emulate something like that, right? Anyways, I really appreciate it, and we'll move on with Peggy for that vote.
Vice Chairperson, excuse me, Vice Chairperson Simitian.
Aye.
Chairperson Arenas.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Perfect. So we are going to finish up with our last item, which is item number 7, and this is a verbal report from the Director of Planning and Development, Jacqueline Anciano.
So I'll start the verbal reports. I'm happy to.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You know what? We said we were going to start the other way around, and I
great.
honor my word.
Thank you.
Ms. Kaminsky, surprise. Verbal report in reverse, but don't speak in reverse.
Thank you. Happy to go first. KJ Kaminsky, Acting Director, Office of Supportive Housing. So just a few updates on our housing and community development side. We are beginning our consolidated plan outreach, which is a 5-year plan for our CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant Program, our Urban County Program, as well as the Home Program. So we will be working with communities, with the community to get feedback on the next 5-year cycle. We yesterday released draft guidelines for the Manufactured Home Purchase Program. This is a potential new small pilot program that would help low, very low, and extremely low income households purchase existing manufactured homes to achieve home ownership. We're planning to market this program to agricultural workers in South County, as well as other low-income households who might benefit from the purchase of a home. The draft guidelines have, as I mentioned, were released yesterday, and we're inviting public comment on those guidelines through November 21st. Our continuum of care team is working to plan for the point-in-time count, which will be at the end of January. This effort requires a large number of volunteers and community input. So there are planning meetings that are involve our city partners across the county, as well as our nonprofit partners and volunteers and folks with lived experience who participate in the form of being guides on the night of the count, as well as helping with the survey. We are also very close to submitting a couple of grants. The Continuum of Care grant will be submitted this next week, and that is for almost $47 million for our community in annual funding, as well as submitting for the new program called the COC Builds, which will allow us to, if awarded, allow us to add new units of permanent supportive housing through new construction, acquisition, or rehabilitation. And then lastly, just a couple of events to highlight and share. On October 30th, we have the Heartwood grand opening. This is the project formerly known as the Crestwood. This is a home key project that is 49 units for families, youth, and individuals who are either experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. 2 days later, on November 1st, we are celebrating the grand opening of the Sunrise Pavilion, which was formerly known as Pavilion Inn. This is also a home key project and will includes 42 units for transition age youth and is a combination of permanent supportive housing for youth and young adults, as well as transitional housing. Lastly, we have our partners at Destination Home are coordinating and co-sponsoring a national lived experience leadership conference November 11th through 13th, which includes an art exhibit curated and featuring artists with lived experience on the evening of November 12th. End of report. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'll see you at the Crestview, now called Heartwood. The last I heard, I think we were on track for the Mountain View Cold Weather Shelter to open on November 1st. Is that still the case?
Yes, Supervisor, that's correct.
Well, then let me say thank you. And Madam Chair, part of the reason I wanted to highlight it is we, and I know you were dealing with these issues from your prior vantage point as well at the council. I think, one of the things I was struck by, at least during the past decade or so, was that while there was a particular need for shelter services during the cold weather months, wet weather months as well, that homelessness didn't go away just when those 4 months, homelessness didn't go away when those 4 months were up. So we have looked at opportunities to expand the length of time that these services are available, and I want to express my continued support for those efforts, as well as my appreciation for staff's success in making that work. Thank you.
Wonderful. That ends your report, correct? Okay. Mr. Nolasco.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair. Edgar Nolasco, your agency director for the Consumer Environmental Protection Agency. In the Ag Department, we published the 2023 crop report, and it is available on our website. The Office of Communication and Public Affairs published a news release on Monday, and thank you to Supervisor Arenas for your quote. In the Animal Services Division, we are finalizing a partnership with the Valley Health Foundation as our fiscal agent to help receive donations and potentially increase the animal services donations that we receive. So far this year, thank you to our veterinarians, we have conducted 4,143 spay and neuter surgeries. Our intake of dogs and cats continues to climb despite national numbers starting to decline. In the Household Hazardous Waste Program, in collaboration with the Med Project, we were able to add 6 new locations that are within Rite Aid that are receiving unwanted medications and disposal. In our vector control district, our surveillance team continues trapping of the 4 invasive mosquito locations to determine if there is a broader level of infestation in our county. And that is the end of my report.
I would venture to say that it's near my home because they get me every time. Thank you. All right, Mr. Aguilera.
Good afternoon, Joe Aguilera, Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation. County Park Rangers have responded to multiple wildfires varying in size and location on county parklands. To prevent wildfires, the department remains proactive in educating the public and issues wood fire bans on specific dates where red flag warnings and spare the air alerts are issued. Park maintenance staff are beginning to transition into fall operations and adjusting routine maintenance cycles to account for activities such as clearing storm drain outlets, weatherproofing structures, and removing hazardous trees. On October 5th, the department hosted its annual Fall Festival event at Marshall Cottle Park. Attendance was estimated at over 8,000 participants, and the department appreciates all who supported in making the event possible. Recently, our Partnership and Equity Program has supported the addition of 2 new murals to the park system, one near the Velodrome in Hellier Park, and the other in Los Gatos Creek Park. The murals were painted by children participating in the Compass Point Mentorship Summer Camp Program. Those are some highlights for Parks and Rec.
Awesome. And how old were those artists, Mr. Aguilera?
They were all school age. I believe they varied from elementary to middle school all the way through high school, so all different ages of youth.
Wow, that is so impactful to see your art in a public setting.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Mr. Freitas.
Thank you very much. Harry Freitas, the Director of Roads and Airports Department. I have to report on some road construction. We actually consider this to be good news. We're working on 2 expressways for the rest of the autumn. We'll be quite a bit of paving on Lawrence Expressway between 101 and El Camino. And we also are paving San Tomas between Prospect and Homestead right now. So those are 2 kind of significant construction activities we have in our department right now. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to Ms. Anciano.
Jacqueline Anciano, Director of Planning and Development. I'm excited to announce that we are now in single digits for our vacancy rate, and that is very exciting. Deputy County Executive Sylvia Gallegos mentioned that we have hired a code enforcement program manager, Daryl Revere, and with Daryl we have 2 additional staff, a building inspector, Timmy Vu, who is a plumbing specialist. He joined us, as well as Albert. And Albert's last name, I'm not going to pronounce it correctly. I believe it's Bellatis. But he's our new senior GIS analyst, and we're very happy to have them join our team. We're very excited. We're working consistently on our recruitment. It's our hope to be at no vacancies. That's our hope. In February of 2025, February, March, first quarter. And we are consistently working to improve our processes, and we're very excited about that. So that concludes my report.
Wonderful. And I have a question on those processes. When do you expect to have a culmination on those?
Well, as Deputy Gallegos said, it's a work in progress. We'll probably have a report in the first quarter, but we won't have all the processes and procedures written probably for the year of 2025, because it's the whole department that we're embarking on, documenting our processes and procedures and modifying them for efficiencies. So we're working diligently, but we're working with Barry Dunn also. So
amazing.
Yes,
amazing,
we're excited.
amazing.
Through the chair, when you're,
Sure.
I don't want to interrupt your
No,
train,
no,
Madam
please
Chair.
go ahead.
Thank you. Two matters. The Director Nashano, I wonder if, because we had our SMARA program on consent, which was, I thought, altogether appropriate, I didn't get a chance, though, to ask what the current status of the most recent application from the folks at Lehigh is.
I'm going to have to get back with you on that, and if you want me to report it here, I can at the next meeting, but I want to give you the exact status. I don't believe it has changed. I can just say that. I don't believe it has, but I can either ask Rob to come right down, because he went back upstairs, he was sitting in the audience, and he could give you that status. Or if you would like an off-agenda report, we can do that as well.
What I'm trying to do is make sure that the information, the last time my office and I checked in, there was an application for a reclamation plan amendment, and it had been deemed incomplete, and there was some back and forth about whatever else was necessary, and that's, sort of routine. Do we know if it's been deemed complete? Let me try it that way, or is that the question that it would be preferable to have an off-agenda report on?
I think it would be preferable to have an off-agenda report, because I'd like to be accurate.
Got it. Well, then let me please request that, and thank you for the offer. And then the other thing is just a quick thank you. We had some conversation, Madam Chair, about interest in the community around the Builder's Remedy projects, not only in our unincorporated county, but in the 15 cities and towns as well, and in an effort to help local jurisdictions and members of the public, quite frankly, navigate that process. I had asked if we could have some information up on the Planning Department's website. That information has been shared through a series of FAQs, and I wanted to thank Ms. Anshano and County Council, Ms. Pianka, as well, for making that happen.
I want to thank County Council, Ms. Pianka, for making that happen and working with us. We really appreciate you, County Council.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, I love all this ending in gratitude. This is wonderful. All right, well, this adjourns our meeting, and our next regular meeting is set for Thursday, November 21st at 10 a.m. here in the chambers, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just adding a quick note, no speakers on item number 9. Thank you.